The important thing about this interview, if for any of you listening, is this is a tool for you to recognize where this is affecting your life, your health, your happiness, what you want to achieve with your life, those loved ones around you, your animals that you're sharing your life with, and tools to do something about it.
The anger of feeling the injustice of this was done to me, and now I'm dealing with this shit show that I now have to fix because someone else couldn't take responsibility for their own damn life. Here I am telling people how to deal with a crisis in your life, and here I'm having my own that I worked through. Absolutely, because I applied my tools, but was I immune to having a crisis? No. If we don't understand the problem that we're facing, we're not going to understand what solution to apply, because we are excellent at avoiding. We're distracting all the time. Your energy can only flow where your focus is.
I am really delighted to welcome back on my podcast today the amazing Evette Rose, and we are going to be covering today Metaphysical Anatomy Part 2, discovering the mind-body connection and how we can all empower our health and well-being through psychosomatics. Now, Evette was on my podcast a couple of weeks ago where we looked into Part 1, where we did a really deep dive into metaphysical anatomy and how we can all heal our body and soul. And we covered a lot in that interview, including never has the time been more important to embrace this healing for ourselves. So after you've listened to this version, this podcast, Part 2, please do go back and listen to Part 1, because you're going to really see all the bits of the jigsaw puzzle fit together. But before we introduce Evette today, let me tell you a little bit about her for those of you that didn't see Part 1 yet. So Evette is a renowned author of 19 books. Yes, you did hear that right, 19 books. She's a personal development speaker, event host, and workshop facilitator. Evette has dedicated her life to guiding individuals on their healing journeys, and she's the founder of the Metaphysical Anatomy Healing Technique. Now, you'll see me mention this wonderful book as we go through the interview. You can see how much I use it with all my tabs in there. So the Metaphysical Anatomy Healing Technique is a transformational approach that empowers people to resolve past traumas and embrace successful, fulfilling lives. And to do this, Evette draws on not only her deep knowledge of psychosomatic research, but her personal experience. Through her compassion, wisdom, and natural healing abilities, Evette has become a trusted source of support and transformation for individuals seeking profound healing and personal growth. Her dedication to empowering others and her commitment to sharing her transformative insights have made you, Evette, a beacon of hope for those ready to really embrace lasting change. And there's a lot of us wanting to do that. But to top it all, you are really funny, Evette. And so I love the way that you embrace the power of humor, both in your healing work, but also your personal life. Absolutely love it. So what a bio, pretty impressive. I just wanted to say that today's episode is sponsored by ASEA redox signaling molecules. Now, it comes in two forms, the liquid and the gel, plus there's a huge other product range for us. But why did I start taking ASEA, and why is it now an integral part of something that my whole family, both four-legged and two-legged, take every single day, plus also something that all the clients I work with, again, four-legged and two-legged, it's number one on my priority list? Well, part of what I do, what I'm passionate about, is understanding the challenges that are affecting each and every one of us in today's modern living. The more you know, the more sometimes you wish you didn't know, but the pollution in the air, in the water, in the food, the control of our minds, the propaganda. But one of the things that we can do is take back responsibility for our own health. Now, every single cell of our body, whether we're an animal, whether we're one of the dogs in the backgrounds or one of my plants, contain these redox signaling molecules, and cellular health and cellular communication is absolutely key, whether you want to get your body back in balance, whether you want to reverse the aging process, whether you want to address any particular challenges that you've got physically, emotionally. it all starts with healthy cells. If your liver cells are healthy, your liver's healthy. If your brain cells are healthy, your brain's healthy. But just like a mobile phone, most of us have got mobile phones that we use on a routine basis now, but that mobile phone, regardless of whether you've got the latest model, is completely useless without a signal. So what does this technology do? The gel is something that you can apply topically over particular areas of concern, whether you want your skin to look better, whether you've got a cellulite, whether you've got an area that's causing you a challenge. The liquid is something you drink each and every day to top up what should be in your cells anyway. But when our bodies are stressed, diseased, challenged, or as we age, we make less of them. So personally, I wouldn't be without it. My sleep's better, my energy levels are better, my mood's better, my mobility's better. If you want to find out more, the details are below. But I'm so grateful that this came into my life, and I'm so grateful I can share it with others. I hope you love it as much as I do. Let me know. How are you doing, Evette? What's happening with you at the moment?
I'm fantastic. I mean, I live in Bali, Indonesia. The weather is always warm. And when the weather was warm, I'm automatically just absolutely in my element. So I'm very happy right now.
Fantastic. Well, we've had a really hot patch in the UK, but the last couple of days it's been pouring with rain. So I will apologise if people hear banging outside. I'm having some very important maintenance work done to my beloved trees. And yes, they're trying to keep the noise down a bit. So last time, I loved our discussion last time. I learned so much. The feedback from the listeners has been so good. As I said, everyone, the link is below. So today we're really going to understand psychosomatics, what it is, and really how important it is for individuals. So can we start by explaining, for those of you who don't know, what is psychosomatics?
That's a great question. Now, this is a concept that has been kind of like grappled with in the medical industry, but it's getting to a point now where doctors are really starting to go, there has to be more to this. When a patient comes into their office and they complain, I have all these pains, and they go through this string of tests, everything comes back, negative, and the doctors are perplexed and they're like, I don't understand how this works. And then one day, all the symptoms can suddenly just be gone, like magic. How is that possible? And now that doctors are starting to warm up to it, I'm getting a lot of doctors actually referring people to alternative practitioners, including myself, because they're like, I don't know what to do with this person. So this is something that I'm very thankful for, because we do need the collective industry to start to open up to something that we can see is there. But if you don't have the support in terms of, opening up about this information, then people are not going to warm up to it as much, because we want to find a solution that we can see on paper in black and white. This is what it is. This is what the problem was. But the thing with psychosomatics is when we have strong emotions that influences the physiological expression of the body, when it affects, for example, your heart rate, or it affects maybe your digestive system. I mean, I know all of you have probably had moments where you felt really stressed, and then suddenly your stomach is really upset. Like, you maybe feel like now you have the runs, or you feel like your stomach is just like you feel like a clam, you can't do anything, or you feel suddenly very nauseous, or you feel like, wow, there's like this pit in my stomach. Well, if you go Google yourself and you think, oh my God, you see all these bad diagnoses and our heads run away with us, when it's purely sometimes just emotional stress that can bring on very, very strong symptoms of similar ailments. Now, what's interesting about that is we're touching on a subject that a lot of people don't like. Emotions, right? Yeah. Emotions. So this is the body's way of saying, when we talk about psychosomatics, and to answer your question, hey, you're energizing way too much of this negative emotion. The vibration of it is not in alignment with my vibration, and it's causing a dysfunction in the vibrational and electrical flow in the body. Now, when that happens, the body's going to shout. It's going to speak to you in the form of discomfort. Why discomfort? Because we don't listen when everything is going well. What is there to listen to? When you look out through even evolution, the only way that change came into life was through stress. It was through discomfort. It was through pain, right? When there's stress applied, only then does change take place. Otherwise, things will just keep running the way that it always has been running.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the body is the same. So the only way that it can get you to shift a certain emotion or mindset that you're energizing that is not coherent with the health of the body, the biology of the body, and your mental health as well, it's going to give you a good shout. And that's normally through discomfort, pain, and often even ailments. Ailments is not just exclusively just ailments. We can have ailments because of environmental factors, meaning you can have an extremely poor diet. You can have, soil is so depleted these days, like we all of us are basically malnourished and we don't realize it, So we're living in a world where we eat food that is completely empty shells and vessels, and then we have these containers full of vitamins to fulfill what is supposed to be in the food. It's like we're doing everything backwards. So that is basically the short answer of psychosomatics.
It's the best answer I've heard. And interestingly, not last night, but the night before, I was seeing Zach Bush do one of his most amazing talks on regenerative agriculture. And this is what I love, is when you start delving into your own personal healing journey, all the bits of the jigsaw puzzle start fitting into place. So that is amazing, because I don't think there's going to be a single person listening to this where they're not, your body's not giving them some clues in some area of their life, whether it's a health issue, whether it's relationship, whether it's your work doesn't feel aligned, that the body is talking to you and giving you clues. So is all disease, in your opinion, is all disease linked to trapped emotions? And how exactly does the body trap the emotions? How does that, because we talk about trapped emotions, but what does that really mean?
That's a great question. Now, when I'm going to say indirectly, there's a high probability, and here is why. If you energize a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, the body is stuck constantly in a state of distress, fight or flight. This is releasing a lot of cortisol. It's releasing a lot of stress hormones that's depleting the immune system. If the immune system is depleted, how is it supposed to fight off or compensate for certain things that you digest, for certain things that you are exposed to your environment? How is it supposed to do its job properly if you don't have a well-functioning immune system? Most of us are walking around with internal inflammation, with inflammation in our brains, and we don't even know it. And all this relates to a poor immune system. But now we have to ask the question, why is the immune system so weak? Yes, you can take certain things maybe in your environment that doesn't have the correct supplements to support and nourish an immune system. But now I've seen in my research as well, there's often people who have the exact same diet and lifestyle and live in the same area. One person's doing really well and the other person is falling apart. What sets them apart? Now, this is where you look at your ancestral inheritance. We don't give enough credit or enough value to our ancestry. You are an expression of your ancestors. How do you think you came to be? With all your strengths, with all your weaknesses, apart from how life in your childhood shaped you and your womb stages when you were going through fetal developmental stages, and then mom's emotions influencing your development, her cortisol levels influencing your immune system's development, including your organs as well. This is setting you up for how strong and resilient the biology of the body is going to be throughout your life. It is shown that mothers who have tremendous stress in life have a higher chance of giving birth to infants who will most likely have a heart attack later in life, or some type of organ malfunction. Yeah. Right. So this is something that's very widely known. Now people are asking me, did emotions cause the ailments? Well, the mothers did. Yeah, at some point down the line, emotions were involved. If we were always happy, if we were always at peace and in balance, these emotions are in sync with the body's natural electrical harmonious frequencies, right? It's meant to be peaceful. It's meant to be very harmonious. Now, negative emotions have the opposite vibration that disrupts this flow. Now, it can take several lifetimes for certain emotions through the DNA lineage to be repeated, certain patterns, certain self-sabotage patterns, maybe certain family values and beliefs that keeps being carried forward again and again and again. And when you look at depression, when you look at anxiety, these are all not always, right? Sometimes there's brain chemical dysfunction that causes, blockages. However, what caused those blockages in the first place? Was it your mom being in her mom's womb when she was in an abusive relationship with her husband that caused certain misfires, and then they just became worse because the emotional patterns of self-esteem and stress and anxiety was just carried forward? That's a high possibility. I would never rule that out. Because when we look at the line of evolution, it constantly brings forward problems. That's why when we start healing, we go, oh my God, it's one problem after another. No, it's not. That's your DNA lineage going, oh my God, we have someone that has awakened. Let's give them the problems because this is not being resolved. Because if the DNA lineage keeps, flowing through these problems, in order for a solution to be applied, our biology is actually solution orientated. We don't realize it. But if we don't understand the problem that we're facing, meaning our emotions and stress and how that, including a poorly regulated environment, can alter and also affect that. If we don't understand how we are showing up in that, we're not going to understand what solution to apply. So we're constantly spinning our wheels, thinking that we're applying the correct solution to a problem because it temporarily makes us feel good. We don't think or feel or look into the long-term effects of feeling good. It's all about now because we want to get out of it. We're discomfort avoidant. We hate discomfort. And most of us, we've set up our lives to be discomfort avoidant. We're fantastic at it. But then we also pay the price because of it. And then we ask all these questions and we look confused and we're like, why? What just happened? So it really comes down to lack of awareness, of understanding that fine line of being crossed in the body when it starts to shift from being happy to feeling discomfort. And that fine line is not noted. We don't take note of it. Why? Because we are excellent at avoiding. We're distracting all the time. Your energy can only flow where your focus is. If your focus is on life and it's stress and it's, competing, it's not with the body. You're not listening. It's not that you don't want to, you just don't know how anymore because your focus has been so long somewhere else that your cognitive wiring almost doesn't understand, what do I do with this now? Right? So it's basically we've unlearned ourselves to listen to the body. So if you want to ask me if ailments are the end result of emotions, I think there's a very strong probability of it. However, not necessarily in this lifetime that it starts. The pattern of it, the predisposition and the sensitivity for certain ailments started a long way back in our ancestry.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. There's so much you've just said there that has triggered so many different patterns of thought. And one of it, I was speaking to an amazing holistic animal therapist yesterday. And one of the things that we're seeing a lot, I mean, it's horrific now. In America, one dog out of every 1.6 dogs will get cancer. So more than 1 in 2 dogs. And yes, of course, as you've already touched on, there are environmental triggers for that, but also there's a lot of stress triggers. So do you find in your work, Evette, that because all our energy fields are linked, and we'll come on to more about that in a minute, that sometimes other beings, whether they're animals in your lives or other humans in your life, might be taking on some of this for you or passing it out energetically?
I'm going to touch on that because I actually spent an entire day on just that in
Wow.
my intuitive spirit guide workshop.
Ah, wow.
An entire day just on, animal communication, understanding ailments, diseases, and how this works. So when you did that interview and that person said, so many dogs are getting cancer out of so many, that's absolutely correct. But what that's showing you is the increase of cancer in us.
Exactly.
Dogs, especially dogs, all animals, cats, any animal that can create a vibration, such as a cat, they tend to deal better with ailments that they take on from humans because the vibration is actually there to help soothe the autonomic nervous system. And so what happens is when it's vibrating, the autonomic nervous system is constantly discharging and releasing stress that the cats take on from us. Have you noticed when you pick up a dog and you hug it and you put it down, it shakes?
Yes.
Every single time it shakes. It's literally shaking you off of it. It's trying to shake off everything that it just felt from you. But they don't have the same capacity as cats do. Now, cats tend to be navigating much more to negative areas. Wherever a cat always sits in a house, they'll have their spot. That is actually telling you that's the most heaviest and negative area in the house. They try to rebalance that. They'll come sit on your body on the area where you have a medical challenge, whether you are aware of it or not. Or it could be a big buildup of a psychosomatic problem that you might not be consciously aware of yet. Animals and cats do that. Now, that's the problem with dogs. They take on the cancer. And normally when you would look at who's the dog's owner, I would look at the owner. I'd be more worried about the owner than the dog because the dog is showing you something. And I've seen this time and time and again. People come to me, they say, my dog has tennis elbow, my dog has cysts. I said, oh, that's lovely. Well, why don't you come for the session first? So
yeah,
let's talk about you. And so because even though they might not have the ailment, the psychosomatic stress for potentially developing that ailment is so ripe that the animal is already expressing it because they are more sensitive.
absolutely. Yeah, they're so energetically in tune. And I won't go too off on that tangent because we could literally speak all day on that. So which course was that in for people that want to know more about that?
That's my intuitive spirit guide workshop. But what's cool about it is it's 4 days, but I split it into 4 days. You can become a psychic, a medium, intuitive reader, a body reader. You can learn how to, work with animals. You can learn how to communicate with your guides and how to heal with them. Because there's so many topics, I've actually split the themes into different days. So you can just come for the psychic day, or you can just come for the animal day, like whatever you feel works for you. That's how we've now set it up to make it easier for people because it's quite intense.
Yeah, I wanted to make that short because the important thing about this interview, for any of you listening, is this is a tool for you to recognize where this is affecting your life, your health, your happiness, what you want to achieve with your life, those loved ones around you, your animals that you're sharing your life with, and tools to do something about it. I mean, one of the things that sets your approach apart, I think, a lot from others, Evette, is this no blame approach to the transformation and healing, because the shame, the fear is just so important at the moment. And you talk about, how we can tap into our intuition. So can you explain to the listeners, one, why that's such an important part of your approach, and also how the negative emotions of shame and fear really tap into play out in this?
Right. So first of all, when we become stuck in shame and the fear and the stuckness in the victimhood identity, that's because we normally get stuck there because we don't understand what we're dealing with. And when we don't understand what we're dealing with, we feel what? We feel unresourceful. We feel completely out of control of the situation. And then in order to make sense of this internal, something is shaking the trees a little bit within us now, and we don't like that. And I went through this myself. I'm speaking from my own personal experience. And I needed to place the starting point, at least, of it somewhere, and that normally would be on people, people that have hurt me in the past. So indirectly, I didn't realize that that was my way of feeling safe and trying to make sense of all this chaos that I'm dealing with right now, because the anger of feeling the injustice of this was done to me, and now I'm dealing with this shit show that I now have to fix because someone else couldn't take responsibility for their own goddamn life. This was what my anger and my rage and all of this is going through, and I'm speaking to you exactly how it went through my mind, because I want people to understand that I'm not above any of this. I went through this process myself. My rage was tremendous. I wouldn't even say the things that went through my mind, but because you'll never see me the same again. But anyway, so to coming back to that, we have to come to a point where you have to ask yourself, how much pain do you need to be in order to make a change? Now, when I ask people that, they go, oh, I need to be, I need to hit a crisis. I need to be pushed into the corner. I need to be on my knees. And I'm like, no, sometimes just enough until you get the message to let it goddamn go. It's a decision. It's not something that you should be forced into. The most powerful change that we can create in our life comes from making a conscious decision, not when you're shoved head first into a situation that you still don't know how to deal with, right? Because when you make a conscious decision, you are now consciously aware of your capacities. And yes, we're still going to figure out how we're going to apply it. I get that, but that's okay. The decision is already a powerful place, because now you are in your power. You're not being pushed by your environment or something that you feel might be outside of you. So for me, that was a fundamental shift in relation to starting my healing process, starting to connect to my intuition, because I couldn't hear it because my blame was on other people. It was like there was no space for me to receive greater wisdom, because I thought I had it figured out, because the answer that I came to is an answer that gave me a lot of comfort. So the problem with intuition is, and the one that most people have, I can't tell you how many people come to me and they tell me, Evette, I don't have an intuition. It doesn't come forward for me. I don't sense it like other people do. I'm not gifted. I'm like, it's not a gift. It's part of your survival strategy. It's actually part of your biological makeup, and you're meant to have an intuition. This is not a gift that people have. Some people hone in more on it because they've actually made a profession out of it. So of course, if you do something to such a certain extent, you're going to nail it down damn well. And people also who have been abused quite severely in life, they tend to be exceptionally good at their intuition because they had to tap into these heightened senses for survival reasons, right? So when certain senses are then energized to that extent, of course, we're going to be good at it. Look at all the psychics out there that are absolutely nailing it down. Ask them about their childhood, right? So you're going to see then how all of this is going to start to play out. But apart from that, generally speaking, the reason why we struggle with our intuition is because we need to have awareness of our emotions. Because your intuition speaks to you through your sensory skills and your emotions. How else do you think you are interpreting these messages or these blips of flashes of information? And then suddenly you just know what you need to do, or you have a feeling that I should do that, or you saw an image and it kind of indicated to you that I should do that. Every piece of feedback coming to you is fed through your sensory system. And that sensory system regulates and compares this data, these sensations, with prior memories that you've built throughout your life. And then that is how we make sense, and we compile this data together into a piece of information that finally makes sense. And then we emotionally respond to this message. So if you don't like feeling your emotions, you will be blocking your intuition. Emotions is the GPS of the soul. This is what tells you what feels good, what feels wrong, what feels bad. Do this, don't do that. And if we don't follow that, what are we following? We can live a life to an intellectual extent, but only to a certain extent, until you find yourself probably in a state of depression or anxiety, because it's going to disconnect you more and more and more from people. We need stimulation. We need connection, especially children, to develop the hippocampus, which is the emotional brain, right? So this is incredibly important to nurture emotions, to nurture connection, because it has a direct impact on organs developing in your body that is responsible for and helping you to feel your intuition and to read it and to connect to these sensations. You cannot function solely by just playing outside of your sense of self, dancing around with the soul or with energy work that comes from God knows where, and I'm being very hard on this because people tend to avoid and deflect from very important matters that is going on in the body, right? If you're constantly going to sit there and say, well, this thing told me this, well, creator said this, and this spirit said that, who are all these spirits? Where are these spirits coming from? Is this your subconscious mind? Or is this really truly a spirit? Have you fine-tuned your intuition enough to know what the intentions of these spirits are? So many people are connected to spirits and they have ailments and they don't know why. So many speakers, famous speakers who channel and speak, are ill because they're connected to spirits that have an agenda, but they haven't figured out how to create that congruent line and message, channel, if that's what you want to call it, right? So all of this, and I talk a lot about this, but this is something that is so incredibly important, and it all comes back to awareness. You can be the best channeler. Anyone can channel, but if you don't have awareness of maybe the intentions or the sources of where this is coming from, or understanding or having awareness in terms of you and how you're feeling in relationship to that. Maybe you're feeling the discomfort, but you're ignoring it because the benefit of getting these messages and getting the following is so great. There's so many payoffs and so many things that we throw a blind eye to that a lot of people don't want to have that awareness because of benefits that we're getting in other areas in our lives. And now I'm speaking generally.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it's incredible when you look at it from that perspective.
It is. And I just really hope this is hitting home to people, because everyone's going to have little things like, oh yeah, aha moments go on. And what you really brought to light for me there, Evette, was, Wayne Dyer, I love his quote, if you squeeze an orange, only orange juice can come out. Because if you're triggered by something, it can't trigger a response if that emotion isn't inside of you. And I think we touched last time, and I'm smiling while I say it, about when we look at what's playing out on a global field, on a society, on a humanity thing, we can see how, when you really think about all these unresolved personal issues, how they play out on a much bigger scale. And we see a lot at the moment about so much projection. Someone will watch or listen to something and then say someone's listening to a podcast, and then they'll start telling those people or the guest about how they should be behaving without taking ownership themselves. So this is huge. Everything that we see, how if people understood how much their own dealing with this affects the greater good, the world could be a very different place, do you think?
Especially people in leadership. And that's why I take also my position and what I do and say so carefully. So you will hear in all my work and all my books and all my interviews and all my videos, I always say, I'm talking from personal experience. This is what happened to me.
Yeah.
I never say you this, you this, you this, you that. If you ask my opinion, I'll say my observation is X, Y, Z, and this is how I can see myself showing up in that. I always bring it back to me. And that is fundamentally important when you work with people who are looking for answers, people who are looking for solutions, right? To not dictate, but rather to be as relatable as possible. Because this is where I know, for me, when I started to work with my healing journey, when I started to work with emotions and awareness, I had a big part of my ego died. It was a big part of me that carried so much shame with not wanting to say, well, there's certain things that I missed in my life. There's certain things that I wanted to do or create and I couldn't because, I had all these blocks. So what? I had blocks and I worked through it, but I also share with people how I had these blocks. And up and even just until last year, you and I had this chat about my new book series where I had this complete breakdown just last year because I was in so much conflict. Should I or shouldn't I? Here I am telling people how to deal with a crisis in your life. And here I'm having my own that I worked through it. Absolutely, because I applied my tools, but was I immune to having a crisis? No, So it's just like you have to be just relatable and just be grounded in the knowledge that you share and not talk at people, right? You want to be conversing in a conversation and not talking at people. And it's when people start to talk at me, or when I see people talking at people, you've lost me. You've completely.
I'm so with you on that. I'm so with you. It's fantastic for when people realize that how much this can transform all areas of your life when you take responsibility for working through your trauma, your stresses. And so because those of us that are parents, you're a parent, I'm a parent, we can break these ancestral lines by doing this work, can't we? We can break these patterns.
We can, absolutely. And I just quickly want to backtrack because I want people to understand that this topic where we say that we take responsibility, I don't say it very lightly because, having been sexually abused, having been raped, having had to leave school because my life was so threatened by all these things that had happened to me, I don't say lightly that the art of taking responsibility is a process. But it's also how you understand taking responsibility. That is what ultimately helped me to ease into it because I was fighting it. I was resisting it. I was angry. Let me tell you, I was so angry. I was like, everything is happening to me and it's this and it's that. My high school days were robbed of me. I didn't have a problem. There's so many things that I didn't have because of how other people showed up in my life. Right? So I had a lot of reasons to be really pissed off. And believe me, I was. And I learned that people are going to show up the way that they can. But it's, and this normally is in the best possible way that they can at the time. But it's not an excuse. But despite that, despite these failures of them, which is not my problem, that's not my fault and it's not my problem. It is my responsibility to reclaim my future. Because every decision that I make in that state of anger and rage and hatred is defining my future. And that is how I kept the past alive. And so for me, what happened in my mind was when I realized, I kept asking myself, how do I change my life? I hate it. How do I change it? And I realized I have to change the way that I approach my problems. I have to change the way that I approach my health, my well-being, because I didn't value any of this because my focus was so much on the anger. And I realized that it's okay to be angry. It's okay not wanting to forgive. I actually made a video, guys, that I would love for all of you to go watch on YouTube, The Forgiveness Trap. Please go watch it because forgiveness is the biggest load of money-making nonsense that I've ever heard in my life. You cannot, I once had a practitioner and she sat there and she said, are you ready to forgive? And I'm like, no. Would you like to work on it? She said. I'm like, no. And I said to her, I really hope you don't tell this to other people either, because forgiveness is not a decision. It's not a decision. If forgiveness was a decision, then everything else in life that involves healing would poof, go away like that by just making a simple decision. Don't talk to me about, sit there and working on trying to forgive someone that you don't feel ready to. If you're not ready to, then that's okay. Let it go. Because when you finally shift the pain, that forgiveness is automatic. And it's not even called forgiveness. I hate the word.
Yeah.
For me, more compassionately embracing what was and accepting where you are right now. Not the person, but how you showed up, how it affected you. By keeping it about you, automatically, you're going to start to see that person differently. Now, looking back at my dad, who was one of the biggest culprits of pain in my life, I have so much compassion for him. But did that did that cause me to allow him back into my life when he was still alive? Absolutely not. If you can speak to me properly, don't call me. If you can write me a decent email, don't email me. I will block you until you can behave properly. That's called boundaries.
Yeah.
People think that, there's such an art to letting go, but it's not something that you decide. It's not something that you force. Period. For me, forgiveness is the ultimate pivotal pain point of any healing journey. That should be put on the shelf and forget about it, because when you really truly heal, you won't even think twice about these other people. They wouldn't even come into your consciousness.
That's so powerful. I'm going to link that for everyone below. I will put the link to that video below, because that sounds like something we all need to go and have a really good look at and work through. And this is why your teachings, whether it's in your books, we're going to come on to this at the end, the workshops, etc., are so powerful, because, when you're working with someone that's actually been through this, everything is different. In fact, I really wanted to ask about, what are your feelings about the disconnect that a lot of people have from nature at the moment, and how this affects their healing journey?
That is such a great question, because this is something that I also had to work with. I had to work on it because I was connected to it when I lived in Namibia. I lived in the sand dunes. One side of the sand dunes were the beach, and then we had the Orange River mounting out into the ocean, and then we had the sand dunes. So we literally lived on these beautiful three corners of everything. And I had a show horse career as well, so I was always at the stables, and we were running around in the water and with the horses and doing all these amazing things, or climbing up in sand dunes. I wrote about this in my autobiography, actually. And it was the most amazing things. I would go out into the desert on my own, and I would sometimes just sit there and just feel the wind blowing the sand, and it would hurt, when the wind's blowing fast and that sand hits you. It's like, and I would just sit there and I would just feel and listen to the wind and the sensations of everything. I would go back to the house, and it would take my mom 4 days to get the sand out of my hair, because I'll be back the next day. So there was something that I found so healing and so incredibly soothing in nature. And how this started for me was because of the sand dunes. I would dig my feet knee deep into the sand dunes, and I would sit down, and I could feel my feet and legs starting to buzz. There's something so magical about Namibia, and that is what woke me up to the beauty of healing in nature. And I actually found myself coming back to Bali. This is why I live in Bali. When I look out my window, I look at a jungle.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by a jungle. I see your windows there. It's just trees, it's grass, it's green.
Absolutely.
Need to see green. And you know why? Because just the color green alone stimulates the mitochondria, which is the cell that is responsible for energizing the master cell and the health of that, which is the platform, the motherboard of how you function. So that already tells you a huge part of just the color green. So if you are stuck in a city, and this is just how your life is, and you can't pack up and go to tropical places, I get that. What I used to do when I lived in cities, I always had posters of forests everywhere. My screensaver, even now here, if I have to swipe the screen away where I'm seeing you, it's a beautiful waterfall. I love to have plants everywhere, even if it's fake plants, it doesn't matter. Green is a powerful,
yeah.
Green is a powerful color, apart from the oxygen that plants bring into your life as well, right? So this is something that we really truly need to reconnect back with, because there is a biological connection. It's not just a spiritual connection, but a biological connection as well. Something as simple as a color that can stimulate the health of a cell.
Yeah. You're so good at explaining things, because we hear these phrases all the time. We hear trapped emotions, we hear reconnect with nature, but sometimes it's not enough for people to, when they really understand, that light bulb goes off as to why, they're much more likely to change their habits, to actually incorporate this into their daily lives.
Yeah, I'm the same. What I'm sharing with you is the aha moments that I had.
Yes.
This is what you realize how important this is. In Japan, when they say when they walk through the forest, they call it a soul bath.
Yes.
Soul bath. Right? And
Yeah.
it's true, because that's what you feel almost clean when you come out of a forest or just out of a park. Guys, a park is enough, right? Like there's just
Yeah.
that beautiful sense of cleansing that takes place, and it's effortless. You don't have to do anything.
It's so beautiful, and there's not everyone can find some way to bring nature into their home. So one of the ways I work is with people that have animals in their lives, and if the animals are no longer able to get into nature, what I do is help people understand how they can bring nature to the animal, and it just transforms their lives so much. So it's just so beautiful what you're sharing, because the thing is, everyone has the power to transform their lives, don't they, Evette?
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, it took me a while to realize that myself. I had my pity party for a good, I think if I have to look at a good 8 years. And in that 8 years, I was healing, but I was in between, I was having my pity parties, right? I was, there were moments where I'm like, this is bullshit, this is not working, this whole personal development industry is a sham. I even quit the personal development industry in 2014. I quit 9 years ago because I thought it was all just bullshit. And this happened when I moved to Hollywood, and I was working with high profile people, and and being invited to celebrity parties where you have to give your phone into the security because you're not allowed to take photos. And I'm seeing all these high profile people that you guys would know snorting cocaine and having, drinking until they fall flat on the goddamn floor. And I'm like, what is this? And it completely shattered what I thought the personal industry was all about. And that's what I realized. It's just another industry. I had to find my power in understanding that it's not the industry that's going to save me and fix me. It's me. It's what I take from this industry. It's how I respond to it and how I apply it to my life that's going to save me. Not people who's lying on the floor, lights out, but the next day they have a speaking gig in front of 2,000 people. So this was a huge awakening for me, a disappointing awakening, but very big. And I quit. I just quit because it threw my values and beliefs, because I built my values and beliefs based on watching other people and comparing myself and thinking, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. You don't know what goes on in these people's private lives. To this day, you don't know what these people do. They rah, they talk, but when this Zoom shuts down, when that stage light switches off, right? There's a whole other world that these people live in, but we don't see that. So this is where it's very important to always take what you feel you relate to, what feels good, what resonates, and then internalize that and work on yourself. Or of course, you can have practitioners that can support you. Absolutely. But my point is, don't throw all your hope, don't throw all your expectations based on watching someone else's every move, because they will disappoint you. I will disappoint you. There's things in my life sometimes where, I feel like I don't have control. My 2-year-old child has a tantrum. I have a tantrum with her because it's too much. It's just like,
yeah.
And it's just like, oh my God, if my audience had to see me right now, and my husband's like, oh my God, Evette, like really? I'm like, shut up, it's like, I can't be a life coach all the goddamn time, I'm allowed to cry, I'm allowed to have my weak moments. But what's important is that we're honest about it and that we're open about it. But what's even more powerful is when we can turn around and say, this is what I did to correct it. This is what I did to fix it. So this is what I share with people. I share with people how I dealt with my conundrums. And I share to this day because it's so important. Here's a solution, see if it works for you. And I put it out there, so I mean,
it's absolutely brilliant. Now, this is what I really want to finish off with and spend some decent time on. You have got so many resources that you can provide for people, from training courses to books to personal work with you, work with people that you've trained. So can we just tell people, can you just share a couple of examples of how people can work with you, how they can start on this healing journey, and the different options that you've got available for people?
Absolutely. So fun fact, we checked in my Vimeo account just the other day just to see how many videos I have, because I was trying to get the storage down, and there was over 3,000 videos, and that excludes the videos that's on YouTube. But I'm like, I've lived long enough to do that. And this is how passionate I am about documenting my conundrums. You know, when the moment when I deal with something and I find a solution, I film it. It's on there. So guys, I've really I've done a lot of work documenting, you know, certain things that I've been through to help you guys as well, to see if it works for you. Of course, if it works for you, then dive right in. So how you can get started is actually a really great question. In my site, evetterose.com, if you click on that, if you go to that site, you'll see it's like a link tree that comes up right at the top. You'll see how to get started.
Yeah.
It opens up with a landing page, and it tells you, here's the books. If you want to do free healing courses, here you can go there. If you want to join my free master classes every Wednesday, you can go here. If you want to see where and how do you start with courses, I give you the list of recommendations of where you can start depending on your experience. And of course, there's so many other things there, including my matmembers.com, which is a free healing site with so many healing courses on there as well that you can dive into. And of course, we have the platinum as well, but that's more for if you want to, you know, imagine if you want to have this book in video format where I talk to you about each element, right? I made a video for each element, 1,200 elements. And then I take you through healing sessions and meditations and everything for that. I'm currently now working on the video format for the kids version as well. So that and so many other things are in there, and so many other master classes and free courses and stuff in the not free, but in the platinum membership site, we have that as well. So that's probably the best page and place to go to just digest what's there. It's compacted really easily for you to just kind of like scan through it and see, oh, I like this. Oh, I feel drawn to this. So you can go see there what resonates with you best right now, depending on where you are in your life.
Yeah, I've been completely blown away by how much resources you've put out there for people, and there's literally something for everyone. So I would really encourage, if this is resonating with you, if you've got that little intuitive feeling that's sort of saying, do you know what, I can really take my life up to the next level, and not only am I going to benefit from that hugely, but so is every other being that I interact with. Beautiful. Oh, Evette, I could literally talk to you all day. I really could. You're absolutely amazing. Is there anything final that you want to leave everyone with?
I think for me, it's just when you can understand that having awareness is not something to be feared, that is when that moment is going to be your biggest breakthrough in life. Because it is the part of us that's avoiding, consciously or subconsciously, having awareness of certain things in our lives or with our body that's really truly blocking us. Awareness is the absolute key to get to wherever it is that you want to be. I can't stress that enough. And befriend it. See it as a superpower rather than as something that can potentially hurt you or harm you. It really is a mindset shift, because that is the awareness that's going to accelerate your vibration and get you to the path and the future that you want to have.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much. I know you've got a very busy time coming up for yourself. Anyone who's watching this, I will put the links to the videos, Evette's resources, her website, and on part 1 interview. Please do go and check those out. It will really, really start to shift whatever in you needs to start that journey onto the next version of yourself, becoming the next version of yourself. We will be keeping an eye on the comments and answering those. So don't be shy to put comments if you're watching this on the YouTube channel in the comments box below or on Rumble. And for those of you on the podcast, the contact details will be there if you need to contact us. Thank you so much, Evette. We really appreciate not only your time today, but we appreciate all these amazing resources you're putting out there for each and every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Big hugs, bye everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. My goal is to inspire as many people as I can to live their best lives, to stay curious and to raise their consciousness and that of the collective. So to do this, I need to reach as many people as possible, and this needs your help. If you feel drawn, would you be willing to share your favourite episode with 5 different people? This helps us spread the word and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. If you feel drawn to do that, I will be very, very grateful. All the links and discount codes where applicable for all the products that I support are on my 2 websites, catherineedwards.life and catherineedwardsacademy.com. All of the products are personally tried and tested by me, my family, and my clients. And finally, please do press the follow or subscribe button, depending which platform you're listening on. And above all, stay curious and stay free.